Books are something I love to have and sort of look at and admire. Maggie Stiefvater is sort of going to be the theme of this, I guess. I'm easy to please. Can you tell? I apologize. It's probably going to be a lot of this. Hold on, let me become normal. Hello, my name is Ellen and I'm unemployed. So I thought rather than sit around all day and do nothing, I would start making booktube videos. So if I get a job in the next week or so, you'll never see this and I'll never post anything again. But right now I'm bored, so yeah, welcome. I recently graduated from college, like so many other people. I majored in English and art history. I'm sure you were wondering. So I thought, you know, why not spend my limited social energy talking to my phone camera? And I could also do one of my favorite booktube tags, which is the mid-year freakout tag. Now I know what you're thinking. Ellen, wasn't the middle of the year 2 months ago? And to that I say, well, you're right. But I actually filled out the tag a month ago, whenever it was the middle of the year, and I have since read several of the books on this list, but you know, that's okay. It turns out that none of that was really in focus, but I don't want to film it again, so hopefully this is, I don't know. Can we see? Can't tell. Feel free to stop watching. Now, what makes me unique? White girls who love to read and want to make it everyone else's problem. We're sort of a dime a dozen. What makes me unique? Well, for starters, I'm 6 feet tall. That doesn't really have anything to do with reading. It's just a fact about me and how I live my life. If you think, wow, Ellen, those shelves are kind of small, if I'm ever, you know, standing next to them, they're actually pretty normal height, and I'm the tall one. I collect souvenir spoons. Maybe I'll show you some of those. I like to drink tea. I'm really sort of a caricature of the archetype. I like to write. It's my dream to write a novel. Isn't it everyone's? Should we just get to the tag? Would that be fun? I'm gonna pull these books because I think I own most of them, if not all. That's exciting. Okay, I'm gonna pull some books from these shelves. Get ready, and we're gonna talk about some books as a sort of get to know me with this mid-year tag. Sound good? Oh my god, someone's gotta organize these. Again, hope this is in focus, but what do I know? Absolutely nothing. Welcome to the mid-year freakout tag. It's not the mid-year, but we are freaking out, so 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Yeah, let's just get right into it with starting out the best book I've read so far in 2025, which I think is still true, because again, I made this list 2 months ago when it was the middle of the year, and now it's mid-August, so things might have changed. But best book I read so far, The River Has Roots. Amal El-Mohtar can do no wrong in my eyes. I'm obsessed with this woman. Everything she writes, ooh, I eat it up. I just reread This Is How You Lose the Time War for, I think, the 4th time. Gets me every time. I know Max Gladstone co-wrote it. I have his book that he wrote without her on hold. I'm waiting if anyone at the library wants to turn that in so that I could read it. I would love that. Time War, River Has Roots, incredible. I also read The Honey Month earlier this year. I don't remember where I put it, but that was also incredible. That was her first published work. It's a series of poems, stories, written each day of February, each one based on a different honey. And so it starts with her review of the honey, and then we get a little poem or a story. And it was so just delightful. And I read it in February. You guessed it, I read one entry every day, and man, helped get me through those early weeks of my thesis. But The River Has Roots. I'm sure you've seen this everywhere. I don't need to tell you. Two sisters, fairy, sort of mysterious. It's so short, delightful. It's got these beautiful illustrations. Look at that. Look. Oh, gorgeous. Gorgeous. The way it's written, like every sentence is a treat. I cried. I like to think I don't cry that often in books, but I do. They do get me. I read it all in an afternoon and I loved it. The magic system being described as grammar. This is not coherent at all. I apologize. It's probably going to be a lot of this. Me just sort of saying words, trying to capture how I feel. But isn't that what we're all doing all the time? The River Has Roots. I think definitely there are some contenders for competition, but so far I do think it's the best book I've read. If we don't count rereads, because I still like Time War more, but this one, excellent. Moving on, best sequel. This is the only one I don't own physically because I listened to it. So imagine I'm holding it up. But the best sequel I've read so far in 2025 was A Wind in the Door, which is the sequel to A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. And I never read A Wrinkle in Time as a child because I was a very defiant kid and I loved to read, but I didn't like to read what anyone told me to. And my mom told me to read A Wrinkle in Time, so I never did because I was an idiot. And I finally listened to it for the first time, I think a year or two ago, definitely while I was in college. I listened to it while like taking walks, you know, because you gotta go on walks in college. You gotta take breaks. And walking, listening to an audiobook, that was always delightful. So I listened to A Wrinkle in Time 1 or 2 years ago, and then I listened to A Wind in the Door this year, which I can't believe. It felt like so long ago, but I guess it was this year. And it was just as delightful, and I can't wait to listen to A Swiftly Tilting Planet. And I've thought about purchasing my own copies of the trilogy just to own, because clearly books are something I love to have and sort of look at and admire. I really enjoyed it. Our next category is new release you haven't read yet but want to. And my answer for that was The Listeners, which I have since read. This is a contender for best books. Should I be telling you the synopsis or just my thoughts? Because I always feel like, well, I can look up the synopsis if the vibes sound interesting, but I'm more interested in people's opinions. In brief, Maggie Stiefvater, her first adult novel. There's this fancy hotel. It's 1942 in Virginia. It's got magical waters that sort of reflect human emotion. And what happens when, well, first of all, Pearl Harbor happens and the US is pulled into World War II. And a bunch of Axis powers diplomats come to stay at the Avalon, at this hotel. And our hotel manager has to deal with that. She's got to deal with the FBI agent who is in charge of these guys and sort of forcing them into the hotel. But she also has to deal with the water. Listen, in my eyes, and maybe this is brave to admit, but in my eyes, Maggie can do no wrong. I am ordering from One More Page Books. I got the signed, personalized edition. I took Maggie Stiefvater's writing seminar online in 2020 with my best friend, Frances, shout out. She's the one who introduced me to Maggie Stiefvater. So really, all credit to her. But now I have come to love Maggie as though she were my own. So I guess, in terms of new release I haven't read yet, this doesn't apply at all, but it lived up to my expectations. And it was one of those books that I wanted to reread almost immediately. And again, just the language she uses, the sentences, I don't know, I've sort of, college turned me into a craft person, and now I'm always noticing craft, even when I don't want to. But in this case, it did not detract from the reading experience. I can't wait for her next adult novel in 3 to 7 years. Next up, most anticipated release for the second half of the year, which obviously I don't own because it hasn't come out yet, but I think it is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. Don't we all just love Lady Knights? Come on! I have a very, I feel like, rocky relationship with Alexi Harrow. I don't know, that might be exaggerating. I loved The 10,000 Doors of January. I read it many years ago and I found it so delightful and charming. And then I tried to read, what is it? The Once and Future Witches? Is that what it's called? Yeah. Okay, I just thought I was going crazy. I tried to read that, could not get through it. Witches, it turns out, at least American witches, not for me. Not for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then I haven't read any of her other books because that one sort of scared me, but I'm so excited about the premise of this one that I am considering jumping into everything. And I've heard that Six Deaths of the Saint is great. We'll see what happens there. The everlasting, most anticipated read. Next up, biggest disappointment. Now, I tend to stop reading books if they're disappointing me. If I had to pick one, it would be The Ghost Ship. I think I would have stopped reading this one if the edition wasn't so beautiful. I bought this in the UK. I brought it all the way home. It sat on my shelf for like a year, and then I finally read it, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It's sold as this great, like, the ghost ship, and it's a silent ship, and it floats off the coast, and it is hunting other ships, and and I love pirates so much, and I'm ready for any kind of seafaring adventure. Sign me up. But they didn't get on the water until halfway through. That might be a spoiler. But I don't care because I was so let down. And then once they were on the water, we sort of rushed through it. And yeah, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I picked it up because Lena Norms recommended it. But I feel like Lena and I have sort of different reading tastes. And maybe I shouldn't be jumping to all of her recs. Although I just read Monsters, which I loved, which was also because she recommended it. So I don't know. I'm losing it. But anyways, The Ghost Ship, biggest disappointment for me. Biggest surprise, 4 Seasons in Rome by Anthony Doerr. I don't know. He's the famous author. He wrote All the Light We Cannot See, which I haven't read. Sorry! This was the first book of his that I ever read. And I get it. I understand why he's a bestseller. The man can write a sentence. This one follows the year he lived in Rome with his wife and their newborn twin sons. But it's really just all about Rome and like how artists flock to Rome, and you can never fully capture Rome, but we try anyways, and I thought he captured it beautifully. I went to Rome for 2 days last year, and instead of seeing or paying to see anything, I laid in my hostel bed and I watched My Lady Jane. I'm realizing I didn't mention a crucial detail, and that is that I was sick. I had a fever. That's why I spent my time in Rome in bed. I did go out in the mornings. I went to the Palazzo Barberini. I went to the Colosseum. Didn't spend any money to go in, but I saw it all from the outside. And I probably shouldn't have done as much walking because I truly was ill. Not fun. And you know what? I actually don't regret it. And I probably should because I spent a lot of money to stay there that I'll never get back. But that's how good I think My Lady Jane is. Back to this book. It's beautiful, and I'm scared of sad books, so I don't know if I will read All the Light We Cannot See, but I am interested in his other work. And I highly recommend this one because it's very short. I read it for my thesis, and I was not expecting to love it so much. And it's all about the conclave, because the Pope dies in 2007, and then the Pope died this year, and there was a conclave. And it was like, I felt like I was ahead of the curve, and I was on theme, because I knew everything that was going on before, maybe not before the movie Conclave came out, but before I watched Conclave, and before the Conclave of 2025 happened. 4 Seasons in Rome, I recommend. Favorite new author. I guess I could have put Anthony Doerr. Sorry, Anthony. Here. But I decided favorite new author, Eric Schnall. Now, he only has the one book, so that complicates things. And I don't know anything about him, but the review on the cover is from Alan Cumming, so he has to be good, right? And this book was incredible. This was a rec from Maggie Stiefvater herself. Maggie Stiefvater is sort of going to be the theme of this, I guess, somehow. But I picked it up because it's about art and Europe, and that's what my creative writing thesis was all about. If you want to know what Alan Cumming said, he called it a love letter to Berlin, to travel, and to saying yes to life. But what I really found compelling and beautiful about it was how much friendship is at the center of this novel, and how sometimes it's not about the big, great romance. It's about the friends we made along the way. And sometimes that is the great narrative of our lives. But it's also about art and art history, and I, as an art history major, completing my thesis, was having a lot of complicated feelings about art history as a discipline. And I wouldn't say that this solved any of them, but it did give me some new perspective. And again, the man can craft a sentence. It wasn't like purpley prose, but it was just so effortless in the way that you know he spent a lot of effort. Does that make any sense? I don't know, but I really loved this one, and I have not seen anyone talking about it except for Maggie, so it was great. I checked it out from the library, and then I loved it so much I bought my own copy, which happens a lot to me. Next question, newest fictional crush. See, this one I struggled with because I don't get crushes, in that I don't find people attractive, even when they're fictional characters. But I came up with Pete from All the Crooked Saints. Again, and when I told you Maggie was going to be the theme, here she is. I hadn't read All the Crooked Saints until this year, which is crazy because I've owned this book since I think 2017, but I finally read it and it was great. Not as good as The Raven Cycle or even The Listeners, I think was better, but it was kind of new and different and something I hadn't read from her before. And Pete as a character, he's got a hole in his heart. I have a hole in my chest. Maybe TMI. But I really loved him. He's just so like pure of soul. Newest favorite character, going back to disco, was Magda from this book. I don't want to spoil anything, but she is the enigmatic and icy manager of Sam's hotel. Sam is the main character. The book, definitely one of the things it centers is Sam and Magda's relationship. And so we only ever see Magda from Sam's point of view, but the way he portrays her, I don't know, I just fell in love with her. And she's so kind of unapologetic, but also a little bit messy, but still like put together at the same time. Like she has a car in Berlin, which I feel like you have to know what you're doing in order to do that. And I love an icy woman. I don't know, she's not made to apologize for being that way, which I found new and refreshing. Read this book! A book that made me cry. Now remember when I said I don't cry while reading books? Well, that was maybe a lie, because you know what, we'll do the next two at the same time because it's the same book. A book that made me cry and a book that made me happy. And that is Great Big Beautiful Life. Sorry. We'll put that back on. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. My copy looks crazy because it's the Barnes & Noble edition. We'll take the jacket off. And I tried to take the sticker off and it left a residue and I can't get it off. Great Big Beautiful Life, again, when I said I'm a caricature of the archetype, I love Emily Henry. Ever since I read Beach Read back in 2020, not to be one of those I was there first people, because obviously I didn't know she existed until Beach Read came out, but I have been a fan since day one of her adult romance era. And all of her books get me. And I know this one had some mixed feelings, and I just want to say I don't understand. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I'm easy to please. Can you tell? I don't think I need to tell you anything about this. You can look it up. I will say the end, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming and it got me. And I'm tearing up thinking about it. But I really loved it. I think it's one of her most romantic novels. That's what my friend Penelope said, and I totally agree. And it was perfect. I read most of it in one sunny summer afternoon outside in my yard. It made me happy and it made me cry. Like more than I have cried at a book in a long, long time. Emily, you've done it again. All right, down to the last two. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. Now, I've bought a lot of books this year because I just buy a lot of books in general, but the most beautiful one I've received was this copy of Ellen Terry's memoir, which I received as a graduation gift. And this is going to require some backstory. I wrote my art history thesis on John Singer Sargent's painting of Ellen Terry as Lady Macbeth. Now, if you don't know who Ellen Terry was, she's been dead for 100 years, but she was a very famous actress of the Victorian London stage, specifically a Shakespearean actress. She worked a lot with Henry Irving. He was the actor manager of the Lyceum Theatre and worked very closely with Bram Stoker. Now we're getting somewhere. Dracula, where are you? This guy, he and Henry Irving were friends. He probably also knew Ellen Terry just because they were all in sort of the same circles with Oscar Wilde and whatnot. Oscar Wilde wrote several sonnets about Ellen Terry. I could go on about Ellen Terry forever and ever. She's sort of, I just find her fascinating. And I find that whole era of like London society so weird and interesting. Ellen Terry, obviously I was drawn to her at first because we share the same name, but she was so cool and I learned so much about her. And I have a different copy of this memoir, which I read most of for my thesis. Not most, I read parts of it. Mostly just the parts about Lady Macbeth. But then, as a graduation gift, my dad found this copy from some antique book dealer on the internet. It's the first American edition of the memoir. It's just gorgeous. When you open it up, there is taped, or glued, I guess, a playbill from some show they did. But it's signed by both Ellen Terry and Henry Irving, which is just insane. So the book itself isn't signed, but the playbill glued in there is. And you know, I cried when I opened it. And that's normal and fine to do. So yeah, most beautiful book. Gotta go to this one. Last up, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? Dracula, I already read Dracula. We don't need to do that again. The three I put on this list: Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I Capture the Castle, and Tusk Love. What order should we? Maybe let's start with Tusk Love, because I read Tusk Love. I'm a big Critical Role fan, also thanks to Francis. I started watching Critical Role when Campaign 3 started, and then Francis, knowing me so well, knowing how much I love pirates, was like, I think you would like Campaign 2. So I started it, and she was right. And so I finished Campaign 2 last fall, and then they announced that they were writing and publishing the romance novel that is a running gag throughout all of Campaign 2. And so I have it flipped to the in-campaign cover, but the real cover is beautiful too. I mean, look at that. Was it the greatest piece of literature I've ever read? No, but it was very fun. And that's pretty much all I can say. Again, I don't think you need a summary. It's a fantasy bodice ripper. It's set in Exandria, which is the world of Critical Role. And actually, I think this book clarified some of the geography of Wildemount for me, which Wildemount is one of the continents in Exandria, the world of Critical Role. So that was useful as sort of a study guide. You know, if you want to brush up on your Wildemount geography, I recommend Tusk Love. No other reason. I put Notify Me and Libby, you know, when they have it, and I was first in the holds line, and so I checked it out and started reading the ebook, and then I was like, this is too adorable. I need the physical copy. So I spent $30. What was I doing? And then I Capture the Castle, which is also sort of a classic. Dodie Smith, she wrote 101 Dalmatians. It was a gift from my boss where I worked because she was giving books to all the graduating seniors, and everyone else she gave them their favorite books, but she said she didn't know what mine was or which one to get. So she gave me her favorite book, which she's an English professor. So that's sort of like the greatest compliment I've ever received, that she thought I would like her favorite book. But everyone signed it who worked with me, and I want to read it before the year ends. But we'll see, because my other pick for this is quite ambitious, and that is, need two arms to lift it, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, who wrote Piranesi and other things, I think. Now, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell Can I tell you what it's about? No. It's 1806. There's magicians. It starts in York, which is where I studied abroad in England. So it's like I gotta finish it before I go to York, and that didn't happen. For context, I started this book in, I want to say 2020, 2021. It was a while ago. And I got about 250 pages in, and then I don't know what happened, because it's not like I wasn't enjoying it. I enjoyed what I did read. You can even see sort of the mark where I stopped, because I had a bookmark in there for so long, because I don't know if I thought I was going to come back to. Oh, the bookmark's still there. I don't know. It's sort of, I'm working on my relationship with fantasy, because I love the idea of fantasy, but I feel like a lot of fantasy novels I don't enjoy, but I want to. And I don't know if I'm forcing myself, or if I think fantasy is something different than what it actually is. I don't know. I guess I have some weird thing that if I finish this book, it will prove to myself that I am a real fantasy fan. It doesn't make sense to me either. Uh-oh. So, this brings us, is this a good way to talk? To the end of my mid-year freakout tag. Again, it's not the middle of the year, but I am freaking out, so I think it counts. These are all the books. Let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know if you watched this, because I doubt anyone will. Again, I'm mostly making it for me, but I guess something in me needs attention from the internet, even though I believe that shouldn't be the way of our future. But other than Frances, no one wants to hear me talk about this, and she's already heard all of this, so oh, that was so heavy. So yeah, I think that's it.